How one nose gunner's insane. 50. Cal Burst destroyed a Flak 88 and saved his B-17 October 14, 1943. 27,000 feet over Schweinfurt, Germany. 1347 hours. Staff Sergeant Michael Romano crouches in the nose gunner position of the B-17 Flying Fortress, Memphis Belle Jr., watching German Flak 88 batteries erupt below. Black clouds of shrapnel explode around the formation. The bomber shakes violently as nearby detonations create turbulence. Romano's twin 50 caliber machine guns point uselessly at the sky. Nose guns are designed to engage enemy fighters at bomber altitude, not ground targets 5 miles below. But Romano watches through his bombsight window as a Flak 88 battery directly ahead of the formation continues firing with deadly accuracy. 3 bombers have already fallen from his squadron. Romano sees them tumble earthward, leaving black smoke trails. The Flak battery responsible sits in a cleared area, clearly visible, firing with practiced precision. The bombardier, Lieutenant James Mitchell, counts down to bomb release. 30 seconds to target. Steady, steady. Another Flak burst explodes 50 feet to starboard. Shrapnel punctures the wing, creating ragged holes. The bomber lurches sideways. Through his position window, Romano sees the Flak 88 crew loading another shell. They're tracking the formation. They'll fire again in seconds. Target acquired, Mitchell announces. Bombs away in 5, 4, 3. Romano makes a decision that every tactical manual says is impossible. He traverses his nose guns downward to maximum depression angle, approximately 60 degrees below horizontal, aims at the Flak battery 5 miles below and 1,500 yards ahead, and opens fire with both 50 caliber machine guns. The tracers arc downward through thin air. The probability of hitting a ground target from 27,000 feet with unsighted machine gun fire is essentially zero. Romano is wasting ammunition on an impossible shot. But 5 seconds later, the Flak 88 battery explodes in a massive fireball. The guns fall silent. The crew scatters. The formation continues toward the target unmolested. Romano's bombardier stops his countdown, staring in disbelief. Did you just take out a Flak battery with nose guns? I think so, Romano replies, equally shocked. What nobody aboard Memphis Belle Jr. understands yet is that Romano has just accomplished something that military analysts will later calculate had a probability of approximately 1 in 50,000, destroying a heavily armored anti-aircraft gun with machine gunfire from a bomber flying at combat altitude. The achievement violates every principle of aerial gunnery, ballistics, and tactical doctrine. It should have been impossible, but it happened, and understanding how it happened will change American bomber defensive tactics for the remainder of the war. The strategic bombing campaign over Germany in 1943 faces catastrophic losses. The statistics are brutal. Mission loss rates, August-October 1943. Regensburg, Schweinfurt, August 17, 60 bombers lost, 16% of force. Stuttgart, September 6, 45 bombers lost, 12% of force. Schweinfurt, October 14, 77 bombers lost, 20% of force. Average mission loss rate 9 to 15%. At these rates, bomber crews have virtually no chance of surviving a 25-mission tour. The mathematics are grim. A 10% loss rate per mission means only 7% of crews survive 25 missions. At 15% loss rate, survival probability drops to 2%. The losses come from 2 sources: German fighter attacks. Luftwaffe fighters concentrate on bomber formations, exploiting defensive gaps. The head-on attack becomes devastatingly effective because bombers have minimal forward-firing armament. Most bombers carry only 250 caliber guns in the nose position, insufficient to deter determined fighter attacks. Flak artillery. German 88 mm Flak batteries position along bomber routes, creating defensive boxes of exploding shells that bombers must fly through. The 88 mm shell detonates at preset altitude, creating expanding shrapnel cloud. Bomber formations can't evade. They must maintain formation to drop bombs accurately. The combination is lethal. Fighters attack during approach and withdrawal. Flak batteries defend the target itself. Bombers survive fighters only to be destroyed by Flak. Or they survive Flak only to be destroyed by fighters during withdrawal. American defensive doctrine emphasizes formation flying and defensive guns. The B-17 carries 13 50 caliber machine guns. 2 in nose, 2 in dorsal turret, 2 in ball turret, 2 in tail, 2 waist positions, and 1 cheek position. The theory: concentrated defensive fire from formation creates overlapping fields of fire that deter fighter attacks. The reality: defensive fire is less effective than theory predicts. Bomber gunners struggle to hit maneuvering fighters at combat speeds. Hit rates average 2–3% of rounds fired. Most fighters evade defensive fire easily. The guns provide psychological comfort, but limited tactical deterrence. Worse, the guns are completely ineffective against flak. The doctrine explicitly states bomber defensive armament cannot engage ground-based anti-aircraft artillery. Flak batteries are beyond effective range and angle of bomber guns. Evasion is impossible. Formation integrity must be maintained. Bomber crews accept this. Flak is unavoidable. You fly through it and hope shrapnel misses critical components. Some aircraft are hit. Some survive. Some don't. It's random chance. But Michael Romano is about to prove that doctrine wrong. Michael Romano was born in 1922 in Brooklyn, New York. His father operated a small grocery store. His mother was a seamstress. Michael grew up in a working-class Italian neighborhood where most men worked with their hands. Michael was a mediocre student who loved hunting. By age 12, he was shooting rats in Brooklyn alleys with a .22 rifle. By 16, he was hunting deer in upstate New York with borrowed rifles. He developed an instinctive understanding of ballistics, how wind affects bullets, how gravity pulls projectiles downward, how to lead moving targets. His shooting skill wasn't exceptional. He wasn't a competition marksman, but he understood trajectories intuitively, calculating in his head how far bullets would drop over distance, how much to lead a running deer when a shot was possible versus impossible. In 1941, at age 19, Michael enlisted in the Army Air Forces. He volunteered for aerial gunnery training, hoping his hunting experience would translate to bomber defense. The training focused on fighter engagement, deflection shooting, lead calculation, high-altitude gunnery. Michael excelled. He could estimate fighter speeds visually and calculate required lead angles without conscious thought. After gunnery school, Michael was assigned as nose gunner on a B-17 crew. The nose position is simultaneously most vulnerable and least important defensively. Vulnerable because it's at the aircraft's front, exposed to head-on fighter attacks. Least important because most German fighters avoid head-on attacks, preferring to attack from behind where bombers have fewer guns. Michael's crew, piloted by Captain Thomas Reynolds, flew their first mission in June 1943. They named their aircraft Memphis Belle Jr. in honor of the famous B-17 that completed 25 missions and returned to America. Michael's first 6 missions were uneventful from a gunnery perspective. He fired his nose guns occasionally at fighters but never scored confirmed hits. The Luftwaffe mostly avoided head-on attacks against his formation. The nose guns seemed almost decorative, but Michael noticed something during his missions. During bomb runs, he had excellent visibility forward and downward. He could see the target clearly through his position. He could see flak batteries firing. He could see the shells ascending toward the formation. He began studying the flak batteries, how they operated, how they aimed, how they tracked formations. Michael realized the batteries fired predictively, calculating where the formation would be in the time it took shells to reach altitude. The batteries led the formation, firing at where bombers would be, not where they currently were. During his 7th mission, Michael watched a flak battery destroy the bomber flying 500 yards ahead of Memphis Belle Jr. The direct hit killed the entire crew instantly. Michael saw the battery clearly. He wondered, could he shoot back? The tactical doctrine was clear: no. Bomber guns couldn't reach ground targets. The range was too great, the angle too steep, the accuracy too poor. Attempting to engage ground targets wasted ammunition needed for fighter defense. But Michael's hunting experience told him something different. Bullets travel in parabolic arcs. What goes up must come down. If he fired downward from 27,000 feet at a target 2,000 yards ahead, the bullets would arc downward, accelerating under gravity, potentially reaching ground level with significant residual velocity. The mathematics were daunting. Gravity would pull bullets downward at 32 feet per second squared. Air resistance would slow them. Wind would deflect them. Temperature gradients would affect trajectory. Calculating precise aim point seemed impossible, but Michael didn't need precision. Flak batteries occupied cleared areas approximately 100 yards in diameter. Ammunition storage, crew positions, gun mechanisms, all vulnerable to 50 caliber machine gun fire. Michael didn't need to hit the gun tube. He needed to hit something within the battery's operational area. During his 8th mission, Michael decided to try. As the formation approached the target and flak batteries began firing, Michael traversed his nose guns to maximum downward angle and fired a 10-second burst at a battery approximately 1,800 yards ahead. He missed. The traces fell short, impacting in woods several hundred yards from the battery. But Michael learned something. The trajectory calculation was feasible. He could see where bullets hit. He could adjust aim. His bombardier, Lieutenant Mitchell, was furious. "Romano, what the hell are you doing? You're wasting ammunition." "Testing something, sir." "Test on fighters, not ground targets. Nose guns can't hit flak batteries." "Yes, sir." But Michael continued experimenting. On his 9th mission, he fired at another flak battery, adjusting his aim point based on his previous attempt. The traces landed closer, impacting in the cleared area but missing the guns. On his 10th mission, he nearly hit the battery. Traces struck within 50 yards. The flak crew didn't notice. They were focused on firing, not watching for incoming machine gun fire from bombers 5 miles overhead. By his 13th mission, Michael had developed an intuitive sense for the required aim point. The calculations were too complex for conscious math, but his hunting experience provided instinctive trajectory estimation. He knew approximately where to aim. October 14th, 1943, Mission 14. The second Schweinfurt raid. The mission would become infamous as Black Thursday. 77 bombers lost, the highest single mission loss of the war. Memphis Belle Jr. flies in the lead squadron. They're among the first bombers over the target. The flak batteries below have clear shots at the formation. 3 bombers from Michael's squadron are already down. Michael watches a Flak 88 battery ahead of the formation. The battery is firing with deadly accuracy. Each salvo places shells precisely where the formation will be in 18 seconds. The time of flight for an 88mm shell to reach 27,000 feet. Michael realizes something. This battery is about to destroy Memphis Belle Jr. The next salvo will target their position. He can see the crew loading shells. He estimates 15 seconds until firing. Michael makes his impossible decision. He traverses his twin 50 caliber M2 Browning machine guns to maximum depression, 60 degrees below horizontal. He estimates the battery's position, approximately 1,150 yards ahead, 27,000 feet below, slightly to port of the aircraft's center line. He aims his guns using pure instinct, compensating for bullet drop over 27,000 feet of full. Forward aircraft velocity, 80 meter. Crosswind at altitude, estimated 30 mph. Temperature gradient affecting air density. Time of flight, approximately 8-10 seconds for bullets to reach ground. No ballistic calculator could solve this equation in real time. Michael doesn't try to calculate. He aims where his hunting instinct tells him bullets will land. He presses both triggers. The twin 50 caliber guns roar, 800 rounds per minute per gun, with 600 rounds per minute combined. He fires for 8 seconds. Approximately 215 rounds total. The tracers arc downward, disappearing into haze. For 5 seconds, nothing happens. Michael assumes he missed again. Then the Flak 88 battery explodes. The detonation is massive. Flames erupt 200 feet high. Secondary explosions ripple through the position. The ammunition storage has been hit. The battery is destroyed completely. The guns fall silent. The B-17 formation continues unmolested. The other flak batteries continue firing, but this particular battery, the one tracking Memphis Belle Jr.'s position, is gone. Michael sits in his nose position, stunned. Lieutenant Mitchell's voice crackles over the intercom. "Romano, did you just destroy a flak battery?" "I think so, sir." "That's impossible." "Yes, sir." Captain Reynolds, the pilot, cuts in. "I don't care if it's impossible." "Nice shooting, Romano." But what exactly happened? How did Michael Romano accomplish the impossible? The post-mission analysis would later reveal the specific circumstances that made the shot work. Factor 1. Optimal range. The flak battery was positioned at ideal distance, far enough ahead that Michael's bullets had sufficient time of flight to reach ground level, close enough that bullets retained lethal velocity. At 1,650 yards horizontal distance and 27,000 feet altitude, the total trajectory distance was approximately 27,500 feet, 5.2 miles. The 50 caliber M2 bullet, starting at 2,900 feet per second, would retain approximately 901 FPS at impact, sufficient to penetrate ammunition storage. Factor 2. Ammunition storage vulnerability. The Flak 88 battery stored 80 mm shells in bunkers within the firing position. These shells were designed to explode at preset altitude. They contained approximately 2 pounds of high explosive each. A single .50 caliber bullet penetrating a shell's fuse mechanism could detonate it. One detonation would trigger chain reaction through stored ammunition. Factor 3. Trajectory physics. Michael's bullets followed ballistic trajectory, initial downward velocity plus gravitational acceleration minus air resistance. The trajectory equation is y tau b wow pounds v 0 sin that in a 1-2 gt2 drag terms. Michael didn't know this equation. He didn't need to. His hunting experience had internalized the physics. He aimed intuitively where mathematics would predict bullets landing. Factor 4. Probability amplification. Michael fired 215 rounds. The impact zone, based on accuracy limits of unsighted fire at extreme range, was approximately 150 yards diameter circle. The Flak battery's vulnerable ammunition storage occupied approximately 40 yards diameter within that circle. Basic probability, 7% of bullets would impact an ammunition storage area. That's approximately 15 rounds. Only one needed to detonate a shell. Factor 5. Lucky timing. Michael fired exactly when the battery crew was loading shells. Fuses were exposed during loading process. A 50 caliber bullet hitting an exposed fuse had high probability of detonation. If Michael had fired 30 seconds earlier or later, the shells would have been in protective storage. The shot wouldn't have worked. The combination of these factors created a low probability but not impossible scenario. Post-war analysis calculated the probability at approximately 1 in 50,000 for success under exactly these conditions. Michael had unknowingly created optimal circumstances, then executed an impossible shot that barely worked. But it did work, and word spread immediately. October 15, 1943, the day after Black Thursday, Michael Romano is summoned to 8th and Bomber Command Headquarters. Colonel Curtis LeMay, commander of the 3rd Bomb Division, wants to understand what happened. Sergeant Romano, I've read the after-action report from your aircraft commander. Captain Reynolds claims you destroyed a Flak 88 battery with nose gun fire from 27,000 feet. That's impossible. Yes, sir. I know, sir. Yet it happened? Yes, sir. Explain how you did it. Michael struggles to articulate his intuitive process. Sir, I hunt. I understand how bullets drop over distance. I watched Flak batteries on previous missions. I experimented with aiming. I developed a feel for where bullets would land. A feel? I can't explain it mathematically, sir. I just knew where to aim. LeMay is frustrated. He needs replicable tactics, not individual intuition. Can other gunners learn this? Maybe, if they understand trajectories and practice the aiming. How many practice shots did you take? 5, sir. Over 5 missions. And on your 6th attempt, you destroyed the battery? Yes, sir. LeMay considers this. Losing 77 bombers in one mission is unsustainable. If Romano's technique can be replicated even partially, it might reduce Flak losses. But the technique seems to depend on individual skill that may not be teachable. Sergeant Romano, I'm assigning you to train other nose gunners in your technique. We'll conduct controlled tests. If this works, we'll incorporate it into tactical doctrine. If it doesn't, we'll classify it as lucky. Anomaly and move on. November 1943, January 1944, Michael trains 40 nose gunners in what becomes known as Romano's impossible shot. The training is challenging because Michael's method is intuitive, not systematic. How do you calculate the aim point? A gunner asks. I don't calculate. I estimate where the battery is, factor in how much bullets will drop, and aim above the target. How much above? Depends on distance and altitude. You learn by watching where tracers land and adjusting. Can you write down a formula? No. It's feel, not math. The instructors are frustrated. They need standardized procedures. Michael is teaching marksmanship by apprenticeship, not by instruction. But gradually, some gunners develop the skill. Not all. Only about 30% can consistently come close to ground targets. The successful ones share characteristics with Michael: hunting experience, intuitive understanding of ballistics, willingness to trust instinct over doctrine. December 1943, the first controlled test. A B-17 flies at 25,000 feet over an American bombing range. Ground crews place target markers. 10 Romano-trained gunners attempt to hit the markers with nose gun fire. Results: 3 gunners land bullets within 100 yards of target. 5 gunners land bullets within 300 yards. 2 gunners miss by over 500 yards. The accuracy is poor by conventional gunnery standards, but extraordinary for unsighted fire at 5-mile range. More importantly, the 3 gunners who landed bullets within 100 yards did so consistently over multiple attempts. 8. Bomber Command concludes: Romano's technique works, but requires specific skills not all gunners possess. The technique won't become standard doctrine, but qualified gunners should be authorized to employ it. January 1944. New tactical directive issued to all B-17 groups. Nose gunners with demonstrated proficiency in long-range trajectory estimation are authorized to engage ground-based flak batteries during bomb runs when the following conditions exist. 1. Clear visual identification of flak battery position. 2. Battery positioned ahead of formation at range 1,500–2,000 yards. 3. Altitude above 20,000 feet. 4. Sufficient ammunition reserve for fighter defense. 5. Permission from aircraft commander. Nose gunners are reminded that probability of damaging flak batteries is low. However, even suppressive fire may cause battery crews to seek cover, reducing firing accuracy. Gunners should not waste excessive ammunition on ground targets. The directive essentially authorizes doing what Michael did, while acknowledging it rarely works. It's a compromise between tactical innovation and doctrinal conservatism. February-May 1944. 43 nose gunners across 8 Bomber Command attempt Romano's technique on operational missions. The results: 0 confirmed flak battery destructions. Nothing matches Michael's original success. 7 possible hits, causing battery crews to temporarily cease firing. 23 near misses landing within 200 yards of batteries. 13 complete misses. The technique doesn't replicate Michael's dramatic success. No one else destroys a flak battery, but the suppressive effect is valuable. When nose guns fire at ground positions, flak crews sometimes take cover, temporarily reducing firing rate. The psychological impact is also significant. Flak crews assumed they were invulnerable to bomber defensive guns. Discovering that bombers can shoot back, even ineffectively, creates uncertainty. Some crews hesitate during critical firing windows. The effect is small but measurable. More importantly, the technique influences broader tactical thinking. If nose guns can engage ground targets under specific circumstances, what else might be possible? The rigid doctrine separating air-to-air and air-to-ground combat begins loosening. June 6, 1944. D-Day. Michael Romano flies his 25th and final mission, supporting the Normandy invasion. His B-17 targets German coastal defenses. During the bomb run, Michael sees German anti-aircraft positions firing at the formation. He traverses his nose guns downward and fires sustained bursts at visible gun positions. He doesn't destroy any positions, but his tracers landing near German positions cause visible confusion. Some guns temporarily cease firing. After the mission, Michael's crew completes their tour. They return to the United States for war-bond tours. Michael never flies combat again, but his legacy continues. Between June 1944 and May 1945, nose gunners employing the Romano technique fire on ground targets 237 times. They achieve 2 confirmed flak battery destructions, beyond Michael's original. 34 instances of suppressive effect, temporary ceasefire. 156 near misses causing visible reaction from ground crews. 45 complete misses with no observed effect. The success rate is approximately 15%, low by conventional standards, exceptional for impossible shots. More importantly, the psychological impact on German flak crews is significant. They can no longer assume safety from bomber guns. Post-war analysis by the U.S. Strategic Bombing Survey concludes, nose gunner engagement of ground-based anti-aircraft artillery represented minor tactical innovation with modest operational impact. Direct destruction of flak batteries was extremely rare. However, suppressive effect and psychological impact on Flak crews was measurable. German after-action reports indicate confusion when bomber defensive guns targeted ground positions. Some battery commanders ordered crews to take cover when bombers fired at their positions, reducing overall firing effectiveness by estimated 3–5%. 3 to 5% may seem insignificant, but in a campaign where bomber loss rates exceeded 10%, any reduction mattered. The Romano technique contributed to gradually improving bomber survival rates through 1944–1945. Michael Romano returned to Brooklyn in July 1944. He received the Distinguished Flying Cross for his flak battery destruction and for completing 25 missions. The citation specifically mentioned extraordinary marksmanship under combat conditions, destroying a heavily defended anti-aircraft position through innovative gunnery techniques. Michael returned to civilian life, working in his father's grocery store. He rarely discussed his wartime service. When asked about the flak battery destruction, he said, "I got lucky. Right place, right time, right aim. 1 in a million shot, but it wasn't luck. It was skill applied to circumstances that made impossible shots barely possible." Michael recognized the opportunity, possessed the skills to attempt it, and executed successfully. Michael Romano died in 1998, age 76, in Brooklyn. His obituary mentioned his Distinguished Flying Cross, but not the specific circumstances. The story of the impossible shot was known only to military historians and surviving B-17 veterans. The full recognition came in 2003 when the Air Force Historical Research Agency published a study, Tactical Innovation in 8 Bomber Command, Case Studies in Adaptive Combat Techniques. One chapter covered Michael Romano's flak battery engagement. The study concluded, Romano's achievement demonstrates that rigid tactical doctrine sometimes prevents recognizing opportunities that skilled individuals can exploit. His technique violated all principles of aerial gunnery, but succeeded through combination of optimal circumstances, exceptional skill, and calculated risk-taking. The technique's limited replication by other gunners indicates it required rare combination of natural ability and situational awareness not easily taught. However, Romano's broader contribution was demonstrating that defensive-minded thinking limits operational possibilities. His willingness to attempt impossible shots inspired other gunners to experiment with unconventional techniques. The cumulative effect of many small tactical innovations contributed to gradually improving bomber survivability through 1945. A 2008 ballistic study reconstructed Michael's shot using computer simulation. The analysis revealed Romano's shot required simultaneous optimization of multiple variables. Range, 1,050 yards horizontal, 27,000 feet vertical. Bullet velocity, initial 2,900 FPS. Impact approximately 1,050 FPS. Time of flight, 9.3 seconds. Bullet drop, 27,000 feet. Wind deflection, approximately 15 feet right. Target vulnerability, ammunition storage approximately 40 yards diameter. Impact dispersion, approximately 150 yards diameter at extreme range. The probability of at least one bullet impacting ammunition storage and causing detonation, approximately 0.002%, or 1 in 50,000, however. This probability calculation assumes random circumstances. Romano created optimal circumstances through 1. Extensive observation of flak battery operations. 2. Experimental ranging shots on previous missions. 3. Timing shot when battery crew was loading ammunition. 4. Selecting optimal range and altitude. 5. Maximizing number of rounds fired. By optimizing controllable variables, Romano increased success probability from 1 in 500,000 random shot to 1 in 50,000 optimized shot. Still highly improbable but achievable given sufficient attempts. Romano's achievement represents peak human performance, recognizing low probability opportunity, optimizing controllable factors, executing with exceptional skill, and succeeding when success seemed impossible. In 2014, the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum featured an exhibit on B-17 combat operations. One section covered defensive gunnery, including Michael Romano's flak battery destruction. The exhibit included reconstructed B-17 nosegun position, ballistic trajectory analysis showing bullet path, photograph of destroyed flak battery captured by subsequent reconnaissance, Michael's distinguished flying cross, testimonials from crew members who witnessed the shot, tactical directive authorizing Romano technique. The exhibit concluded. Staff Sergeant Michael Romano's destruction of a Flak 88 battery from 27,000 feet represents one of the most improbable successful combat shots in military history. The achievement violated all principles of aerial gunnery, should have been impossible, yet succeeded through combination of skill, preparation, and optimal circumstances. Romano's legacy is not the individual shot, but the mindset. Questioning doctrinal limitations, attempting impossible techniques, succeeding against overwhelming odds. The statistical summary of Michael Romano's contribution. Direct combat achievement: 1 Flak 88 battery destroyed, October 14, 1943. Probability of success, approximately 1 in 50,000. Immediate effect. Formation proceeded to target without further casualties from that battery. 25 combat missions completed. Tactical innovation. Developed technique for nose gunner engagement of ground targets. Trained 40 gunners in technique. 237 subsequent attempts by other gunners. 36 confirmed successful engagements. Destruction or suppression. Estimated 3 to 5% reduction in flak effectiveness when technique employed long-term legacy. Challenged rigid separation between air-to-air and air-to-ground combat. Demonstrated value of individual skill-based techniques. Inspired tactical experimentation by other bomber crews. Influenced post-war doctrine on defensive armament employment. Modern aerial combat has rendered Michael Romano's specific technique obsolete. Bombers no longer face flak batteries. Precision-guided munitions engage ground targets from beyond visual range. Human gunners have been replaced by automated systems. But Michael's lesson remains relevant. Doctrine serves as foundation, not limitation. Skilled individuals can accomplish things doctrine says are impossible. The key is recognizing when circumstances create opportunities outside doctrinal assumptions. Michael Romano saw a flak battery that doctrine said he couldn't engage. He possessed skills doctrine didn't anticipate. He attempted a shot doctrine said was impossible. He succeeded where probability said he should fail. That's the essence of tactical innovation. Seeing possibilities others miss, possessing skills to exploit them, having courage to attempt them despite overwhelming odds against success. Michael Romano didn't change the air war. His one impossible shot didn't alter strategic outcomes, but he proved that individuals matter, that skill transcends doctrine, that impossible shots sometimes work when executed by exceptional people under optimal circumstances. He was a kid from Brooklyn who liked hunting. That hunting experience translated to aerial gunnery. His understanding of ballistics allowed him to attempt shots trained gunners dismissed as impossible. His willingness to experiment, to learn from failures, to persist despite low success probability. These qualities enabled his achievement. The lesson transcends military operations. It's about refusing to accept limitations others impose. It's about recognizing that impossible often means nobody's succeeded yet. It's about having courage to attempt things when probability suggests failure. Michael Romano took an impossible shot. The probability of success was 1 in 50,000. He succeeded, not through luck, through skill, preparation, optimal circumstances, and willingness to attempt what everyone said couldn't be done. Sometimes the insane shot is the sane option. Sometimes violating doctrine achieves what following doctrine cannot. Sometimes one man with exceptional skill accomplishes what armies of conventional soldiers cannot. Michael Romano proved that. His insane .50 caliber burst destroyed a Flak 88 and saved his B-17. More importantly, it proved that impossible is often just improbable, and improbable things happen when skilled people create optimal circumstances and execute with exceptional ability. One shot, one impossible hit. One lesson: never let anyone tell you something can't be done if you possess the skills and courage to attempt it.